You are listening to the Second Arrow Bowling Podcast, a production of LaGrange Media, with your host, Toby LaGrange. Welcome, everyone, to the debut episode of LaGrange Media's Second Arrow Bowling Podcast, hosted by yours truly, Toby LaGrange. In this episode, we will talk about the recently announced USBC Hall of Fame class of 2024, go over the PBA Players Championship results and controversy, and check in on the FMCC Bowling Team. First, though, I want to take a few moments and talk about the Second Arrow Bowling Podcast. This podcast is dedicated to all things bowling, from the PBA and the PWBA to college and local action, and everything, of course, in between. I am aiming at a new episode every other week, but I am open to making it weekly. It all, of course, depends on how much you, the viewer, likes and shares each episode. For those of you who do not know me, I come from the world of motorsports. I am currently the voice of the LaGrange Motorsports Park in Fultonville, New York, and have been in the sport either as a fan, a media member, or an announcer ever since I was 3 years old. I have hosted the LaGrange Media Motorsports Podcast and others over the past few years. Growing up here in Gloversville, I lived and breathed three sports: racing, baseball, and of course, bowling. I started bowling when I was about 4 years old and continued in at least one league every year until I was about 24. In addition to the junior leagues, I was also a 3-year varsity starter on the Gloversville High School bowling team and a captain, averaging in the low 200s or so. I had a partial scholarship offer to bowl in college, however, circumstances would not allow me to accept it, so I ended up staying close to home and attending a school without a bowling team. I continued to bowl in leagues until I was 24, when getting engaged kind of led me in a different direction. When the engagement ended, my drive to bowl was gone as well. I would be out of the sport for almost 20 years until I got the itch again. That itch came after I met the person who is now my wife, and we had our first child. I can credit my 7-year-old son for getting me back in the sport. He currently bowls in the Bumpers League locally at the Arterial Lanes in Gloversville, and next year I will be returning to league action as well. It's funny. When I purchased him his first ball, bag, and basic supplies this past fall, I ended up getting that feeling again and bought myself a Black Widow 2.0, a new double bag, and all of the needed supplies. Let me tell you, it felt great to go bowling again. I also have a 2-year-old who will be joining the Bumpers League next year. I decided to branch out and give a bowling podcast a try, so hopefully this goes well. This podcast is designed to spread news around to give my opinion on the topics that are in the headlines. I'm not out beating down doors and getting leads to create stories. Most, if not all, the topics I'll be covering have been put together by me after researching various bowling media outlets. When needed, credit will be given to those outlets I used. Each episode will be available on all the social media platforms in video form and in audio form on Spotify, Apple, and most audio platforms. So let's talk about the USBC Hall of Fame class of 2024. Per a release posted on 11thframe.com, Tommy Jones, Sean Rash, and Missy Parkin will be inducted into the USBC Hall of Fame on April 24th via the Superior Performance category. They will join Brian Walashek, Jody Wozner, Debbie Kuhn, Roy Buckley, and Darlene Baker in the class as they take center stage at South Point in Las Vegas. Jones and Rash, however, will not be in attendance as they will be competing in the PBA Tournament of Champions that week, going for the $100,000 top prize. We all know who Jones and Rash are. However, for those of you who may not know who Missy Parkin is, here's a little bit about her. The 43-year-old right-hander is a 13-time Team USA member and a 4-time Junior Team USA member. She has earned more than 40 medals during international competition, including 23 gold medals. She was a 2-time All-American at Cal State Fullerton and won the 2011 USP Queens in Syracuse. Those who are familiar with my motorsports work know that there's a special place in my heart for Hall of Fames, even the bowling ones, which often are crowded, to say the least. More on this in a future episode. The PBA season opened with the PBA Players Championship in Wichita, Kansas on January 15th. The stepladder finals were held on Monday afternoon, which was Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So some people were home. Not me, of course, but thankfully there's this thing called DVR, so I was able to watch it once I got home. Since this was a couple weeks ago, and I've spent too much time on the results, but here's a quick overview. Ryan Barnes and Chris Vi faced off in the first match, with Barnes advancing to face the number 3 seed, Nate Stubler, after beating Vi 267 to 223. Barnes would remain the story of the tournament after defeating Stubler 224 to 220. This set up Barnes versus the second seed, Bill O'Neill, in a showdown. Veteran O'Neill would be victorious over Barnes 215 to 205, and in the process earned a ticket to the title match against top seed Tommy Smallwood. O'Neill would defeat Smallwood, for the title 209 to 178 and take home the big win. O'Neill's win was worth $100,000 and will go down as his 14th PBA Tour title and third major championship. Smallwood brought home $55,000 for second, while Wichita State senior Barnes would earn $35,000 for third. Stubler finished fourth and earned $30,000, while Chris Vi earned $25,000 for fifth. The next event on the PBA Tour will be the U.S. Open on January 27th in Indianapolis. Now, what would the season opening tournament be without some controversy? 4 Wichita State University men's bowling team members were given commissioner's exemptions into the pre-tournament qualifier. All 4 of those bowlers, Barnes, Spencer Robarge, TJ Rock, and Brandon Bonta, advanced to the main field from the PTQ and cashed. The controversy, of course, comes in the fact that 4 non-PBA members were given exemptions not only into a PBA tournament, but the PBA Players Championship. Let me say that again. The PBA Players Championship. Some of the PBA's finalists were not too happy, including number 1 seed and eventual runner-up finisher Tom Smallwood, who made some comments that PBA Commissioner Tom Clark was not too happy with. I have not been able to confirm if he was fined or if he was threatened with a fine, but either way, Smallwood raised the ire of the commish. I look at it this way. While I realize that this was a PBA Players Championship, emphasis on the PBA part of this, and that the tournament rules state something to the effect that all participants need to be PBA members, there's also a rule listed that states the PBA commissioner can offer exemptions, which, of course, he did. Smallwood and others are all professional bowlers and should really act that way. I understand that they make their living doing this. This is how they get their paycheck. But you know what? You are professionals. If any of us were to voice our displeasure with our employer via social media, we would be lucky to be fined. Really lucky, as we would probably be filing for unemployment. Each of the Wichita 4, as I call them, earned their way into the show by beating PBA professionals. Case closed. Or at least PBA members, anyway. Of course, some of them might not be professionals. They might have other jobs that they go home to, but they're all PBA members. And again, I get it. These 4 were not PBA members, but this is a one-time exemption. I, for one, was rooting for Barnes to make the run. The sport needs it. The sport needs some fresh blood. Sure, he's not your average college senior, and regardless of how much he or his Hall of Fame parents downplay their involvement, he has opportunities that most college seniors could only dream of. But he did a hell of a job, with all the eyes and the pressure of the bowling world on him. Let's go from a major university like Wichita State and their 4 members who made the PTQ and into the PBA Players Championship to some local action. Taking a look at the local bowling scene, the FMCC, the Fulton-Montgomery Community College Raiders, hosted their only home tournament of the season on January 17th at Arterial Lanes in Gloversville. FMCC Stephen Holbert opened the conference season with an impressive 697 three-game set, and then backed it up with a 729 in the second set. The team then moved on to the Hawk Invitational on January 21st, that was this past Sunday, at Kingpin Lanes in Rome. Holbert once again led the team with high games of 245 and 200. Other high scores for FMCC were put up by Hayden Ospelmeyer with a 214, Krista Coleman with a 187 and a 185 as well. Holbert finished 9th out of the 43 bowlers, with the team finishing 7th of the 11 schools on hand. The FMCC bowling team returns to action tonight at Vista Lanes in Yorkville as they compete in a match hosted by Herkimer College. So good luck to all the bowlers on the FMCC team. Now, that's where I went to school. And, of course, just my luck, they did not have a bowling team back when I was in college, back in the late 90s. But you know what? I'm glad they do now, and I'm glad that it's starting to grow. I do know they started out trying to have a men's and a women's team. Didn't have enough for the men's, and so they combined it together and had one combined team that do compete against in the men's division. And hopefully it all works out for the folks out in Johnstown. Going forward, each episode will also include segments like the FMCC segment. There'll be segments on the PBA East Regional, updates from them, updates on the USBC and NCAA Collegiate Bowling, i.e. Wichita State, and the NCAA Women's Bowling Group. A spotlight on local league bowling. We'll do a local league each week. We'll talk about the results there. And, of course, the LaGrange Media PBA and PWBA Power Rankings. That'll debut in the next episode. That, of course, is all in the next episode, as this episode is coming to a close. That will do it for this one. Thank you very much for watching, or listening, if you will. Until next time, stay safe and support those that support this great sport of ours. So long for now.